Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In Podcast. Sorry we couldn't get an episode in last week. Really couldn't find the time that I wanted to put into the podcast and give it the effort we needed to give you guys a good episode. But we're back with a killer fight card this week. It is stacked, and make sure you guys, like the video, subscribe, and comment on the, down below and on our Twitter who you guys think are going to win. We love interacting with you guys, and like I said, we are back for an absolute stacked night of fights. It's UFC Fight Island 5. It's Marlon Moraes versus Corey Sandhagen. What do you think about this night of fights?
I'm really excited. One of those ones where, again, if you're not a hardcore fan, it can kind of slip under the radar.
Right.
But after really digging into it, man, there's some heavy hitters on this fight. I think we'll have quite a few finishes, and I'm actually really excited about it.
I know. We're really excited to break it down for you guys, and we also feel like there's some good betting lines and stuff that we really like this fight. But speaking of, having a good night and bet lines that we liked, we had a killer night last Saturday. Over 4.5 units positive. I think we went 4-1 on our picks. Mm-hmm. And the first one, man, I'm going to let you take that one away because that was your boy for the whole week.
I had been on Luigi. He really impressed me whenever he took his UFC debut against Zaleski dos Santos at a weight class above his normal one. He almost finished him a couple of times, and I really do think that size advantage was the only thing holding him back from getting that dub. So him coming into this one against somebody who is in his same weight class, he showed that he is a top level performer. 100% finish rate. He's a monster, and I really think that he can make an impact on that lightweight division.
I know, man. He did look good, and I'm pretty sure he's only like 25, something around the age, something like that. So very good prospect to look out for. And I think the fight right after that was Loma. Snagged an excellent money line on her that we were all over at the beginning of the week. And she did get held down in the third round for a little bit, but I think she was 30-27 across the board. She looked good.
She really did. I think we talked about it a little bit before. Looked great against girls her own size, but once she fights anybody with a 4-inch height advantage, she starts to have those troubles in the clinch work, and her Muay Thai it doesn't really work as well as she'd like to.
Right. And then just to touch real quick, my boy Carlos Condit, that's the guy that got me into the UFC. It was great to see him back to get a good win. He looked good. But I'll be the first to say that Court McGee didn't look that good himself.
No, Court McGee, it seems like he didn't have a game plan coming in there. I think everybody thought that he'd be shooting for a takedown with Carlos Condit's pass, giving up so many takedowns, but it just didn't happen. Also, we got to talk about Casey Kenny. He looked like a world beater out there. Now, I think he had the perfect opponent to, implement that stand-up and just punish him over and over again. That I forgot his name, but he might be the toughest dude I've ever seen.
It's like Alatang or something like that.
Alatang Weili.
Yeah, but I had mentioned to it before. The odds when I saw him at plus or minus 350, a little too much for me to play. I did parlay Kenny with somebody with Jourdain. I think ended up getting a small one because Jourdain with his lackluster performance. But man, Kenny, you've got Luis Smolka, Ray Borg, and Merab Devershelly-Wally, on your resume, and then it's Alatang, which, in my opinion, is not as good as all three of the guys he just previously fought. I saw people snagging Casey at a minus 220 when he opened, and I would have been all over that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
We had, GDR. That first round, she landed 4 right hands. I was talking about how much superior she would be on the feet, but I don't think anybody expected her to snatch that neck and get that guillotine. I know the books had it at a plus 2,300. Yeah. Even just a little sprinkle won you some money there. That was something a lot of people didn't see coming, but we did bet on her the money line, so that cashed.
The tide of that fight really started to shift right about the middle of that second round, and I do think that she was about to get pointed to a loss against Pena. She started implementing her game plan as far as getting her down to the ground, and I think she got lucky with that sub. She
props
probably to her. Yeah. But
well, I think probably with you, the tides definitely did start to shift in that one, and finally, man, our big play of the night, we were all over Holly Holm. We snagged her at a minus 115, and Irene Aldana had nothing for Holly Holm, and Holly Holm also looked the best that she ever had, in my opinion.
I agree. She looked like a world beater, someone that I'd honestly be interested to see Amanda Nunes, get another shot at that. I know Nunes starched her the first time, but realistically, if Holly Holm could stick to that type of game plan, she looks awesome.
Yeah, man. So that made 4 out of our last 5 events, profitable. Free money. We released the picks for free for you guys. We're going to start trying to get them out there a little earlier starting this week. So free money for you guys who are tailing. And I'm excited for this card because I think it's going to be another profitable week for us.
I think so too. We were talking about it. I think we got some good reads on this card, and I'm excited to give you guys those picks.
We do, man. So as from bottom to top, let's dive in, man. The first fight is Bruno Silva, who's 10-5 and has 2 draws, fighting Tagir Ulanbekov, who's 12-1. And right now, just, when you look at it off the bat, the first thing you see is the size advantage that Ulanbekov is going to have on him. At 5'7" flyweight, that's excellent size. And I just want to touch on Silva first because I really have much more to say about Tagir. I'm pretty high on this guy. So Bruno Silva, former roommate of Henry Cejudo, so he comes into the UFC with quite a little hype behind him, and now he's 0-2 in the UFC, being finished in one of those in his debut. Very few weapons, in my opinion, does he throw really good. He's got a right hand, he's got a good left kick, and he shoots a good double when people overcommit there, but outside of that, he really just relies on the bulldog pressure, to get it done. But Tagir is somebody that's not going to be pressured as easily as Silva's last opponents. Tagir is a longtime teammate of Khabib Nurmagomedov at Eagles MMA, and there's pictures of them over 10 years ago together and stuff, man. This guy, number 1 flyweight, I think not signed by the UFC right now, and what I've read about this guy is nothing but good stuff. I read that he takes this game so serious that from Dagestan, this guy packs up a stove, food, all his equipment and everything, and take it with him to Abu Dhabi. He's that strict on his diet and that strict on his training regimen. I like this guy a lot. I think he's going to be an excellent, excellent addition to the flyweight division.
I totally agree. I think we talked a little bit before that he's the number 1 ranked flyweight that isn't in the UFC already. He fights like every Dagestani Russian fighter I've ever seen. He utilizes those Dagestani handcuffs, and the top control is just immaculate, man. Right. I mean, it's really impressive, and it really does mirror his friend Khabib.
Right.
Now Bruno, yeah, he just hasn't looked good as far as the UFC. In his last 6 fights, he's 2-3-1, and I don't know if there's much upside, especially if he gets these hard opponents that he's been facing. Right. He would like to, in theory, utilize his top control and positioning, but I don't think he's going to be able to implement that on somebody like Tagir.
I agree.
The thing that I do like about Bruno Silva is he's got Henry Cejudo in his corner, so I imagine that they're coming up with some game plans to try and combat Tagir's offense that he tries to do. But again, I just don't think Silva's on the level, and I think that he'll probably be on his way out of the UFC after this one.
I agree, man. Right now they have Tagir at a massive favorite, minus 360 to the comeback on Bruno at a plus 300. Now, odds like that, a little bit ridiculous, especially for a guy that's a newcomer, but I really do think Ulanbekov gets this one done. The one blemish on his record is a guy named Zamas Zumagulov, who I believe is now in the UFC, had that really tough fight with Raulian Paiva, who I'm super high on, and he's got a win over Tyson Nam, but I did get to watch that fight this week, actually, and Tagir dropped him like 2 or 3 times in that fight. I thought Tagir did enough, but that was a 5-round fight. Zumagolov's cardio was just a little bit better, started to kind of take over late. But this one's a 3-round fight. I'm picking Tagir. I'm all the way on him. And I actually got a bet on him to get this one done inside the distance.
I don't mind that at all. I'm also on Tagir. Haven't really thought about how it's going to finish, but I'm with you. I think he gets it done relatively easy, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was within the distance.
And then I know you're excited about this next fight, so take it away.
Yeah, this next one, Tracey Cortez coming in at 7-1. Versus Stephanie Egger, who is 5-1. Now, whenever you look at the records, it seems like their experience level is roughly the same, but when you take into consideration Tracey Cortez's amateur record as well, she has more than double the experience in the octagon, which is really going to play a factor. Looking at Tracey Cortez's record, the most impressive win that I saw was against Maria Agapova. She weathered the storm early, which is what you have to do against Agapova, and then was just able to, get it to the ground and just break her.
Yep.
Tracey Cortez, now the majority of her fights were at flyweight, and she's only recently transitioned to 135. This will be her second fight in 135. Her last one being against Vanessa Mello, which she did look good against, but as I watched that fight, she has a ton of glaring errors on the feet. Whenever she goes for a low kick, she drops her hands and exposes that chin, and she gets caught with a straight punch almost every single time that she threw a leg kick against Vanessa Melo. And I think Stephanie Egger is a much better striker than Vanessa Melo. Egger, she's fought at 145 before, so I do think that she's going to come in as a much bigger person, especially on short notice. She might even have weight cutting issues, and so I expect Egger to look physically much bigger than Cortez, and I don't think that Cortez is going to be able to, implement that game plan of trying to take her down and control her. Stephanie's world class in judo. We just talked about she lost her fight against
Gabby Garcia.
And that's a big old girl. So if she's even competitive against Gabby Garcia, I gotta think that she's just gonna ragdoll Cortez, and I think that that's really Cortez's only path to victory. One more thing to note about Cortez: she can take a punch.
Yeah.
Whenever she was facing Vanessa Melo, she took some hard shots and looked good. Like, just ate them. It really wasn't a problem. But I really expect Stephanie Egger to give her some problems. And sitting at the plus 200 right now, that's my underdog pick of the night.
Yeah, man, I think Stephanie Egger by far is one of the best dog plays on this entire card. With Tracey Cortez, man, you talked about her being able to take a punch. She's a tough girl, man. Hard past, losing her brother and stuff, who was like destined to be in the UFC. That's the one that's tattooed on her arm and stuff now. Apparently, like right after that, I don't know what she was getting into. Dad kicked her out of the house and stuff. She's had a rough life, and it's evident in the way this girl fights. It's a real grindy style of putting the girls on the fence, going for relentless takedowns for the full 15 minutes, and that's how she did beat Agapova. She did have to weather the storm, and later in those rounds put her up against the fence. And she has very good chain wrestling. So from double legs to single legs up against the fence, she really threatens girls with a ton of takedowns. But we touched on Egger's grappling experience, whether it be in the judo or the ADCC, world champions and stuff. She's fighting girls like Gabby Garcia and grappling girls like that. So Egger, I gotta believe that she's going to have the grappling edge, even though people like to think that Cortez is going to be the far superior grappler here. He touched on the weight cut issues, and that's something that I'm a little worried about, is because she just fought last month, and is she the type that stays ready and kept the weight under control, or is she like our boy and puts 18 Reese's in his mouth as soon as he finishes? So I don't know what kind of shape she's going to come into, and for me, I think the odds makers kind of swayed my decision to look at Tracey Cortez a little bit, but Stephanie Egger, definitely one of my dogs to play of the night. I don't think she's a terrible pick by no means. She's coming in at 5'8", compared to Tracey Cortez's 5'5", with a judo background. Tracey Cortez is going to try to implement the grappling heavy approach, and for a girl who's very experienced in grappling, I don't know how well that's going to play out. So I think these odds are absolutely ridiculous. Officially, I think I am going to lean toward Tracey Cortez, but man, if Stephanie Egger gets this done, I won't be surprised one bit.
One of the other problems with Egger, whenever I watched her fight, she does have a problem with putting her back up against the cage, and that will play right into Cortez's game plan. But I got to imagine that she's addressed that, especially for a fight with Tracey Cortez.
Yeah, and so you touch on putting her back up against the fence. I literally have tall man defense written here, because it's James Vick, it's Daquan Townsend, it's put your back on the fence and try to move your head a little bit, and it doesn't really end up well. She's been pieced up on the feet, but I don't really see Tracey Cortez being the girl to come out here and have that type of striking to do that either.
Right.
Like I said, I think the odds makers have swayed my decision to lean toward Tracey Cortez probably with the split decision. I think she loses the first round and makes the second and third super close. But I'd be willing to put whatever money that Tracey Cortez wins the third round if it goes there. I like her to have the cardio edge in this fight.
I got you.
So we don't always agree on the fights, but that's what makes it interesting come Saturday.
Right.
And then the next one is Giga Chikadze, who's 10-2 versus Omar Moraes, who's undefeated at 10-0. And this is out featherweight, so this is Omar's first fight coming down from lightweight. And in my opinion, I don't really know why he's doing it, because he's looked so good every time. And at 5'11", you're not giving up any size at lightweight. So, maybe he just feels like, 45 is the weight class for him. I like Omar a whole lot, but I feel like we've touched on Giga 2 or 3 times on this podcast, and he's just not, the fight hasn't played through and hasn't happened. So hope we finally get to see him. I think this is a really good fight, and I think this is a guy that's going to do what guys like Costa and Gastelum did for Izzy and bring the fight out of Giga to see the the kickboxing skills that he has. Someone like Erwin Rivera and his other one Jamal Emmers, it was more of a at range kind of fight and stuff. And I like to see those guys who are super high level kickboxers get pressured by the guys who aren't as technical, to really test that, to draw them out into that war and see some of the tactics that they have. So Giga, he is at the underdog at a plus 125, and he's actually one of the dogs that I'm keeping my eye on. Probably one that I probably won't end up playing because this is a super close fight to me, but I really do think that there's potential for Giga to win here. Both these guys, they throw excellent kicks. Giga more toward the body and the head with his, where Omar's is he'll wear out your calves and stuff with them. Bad, man. With Giga, he's got a little bit of a kickboxing background and stuff. He's 3-0 in the UFC, still searching for the finish. I'm not 100% sold on him, and you'll hear his opponent's record as to why we're not too sold on Giga yet. He kind of slows down in that third round and stuff, and I don't think Omar's some guy that you can slow down against, because if Omar smells blood in the water, he's the type of guy that goes after the finish, in my opinion, and I think he's going to pressure Giga really early with that calf kick and give Giga some problems here. I'm worried about that extra 10-pound weight cut in the body kick that Giga really likes to throw.
Yeah. So that body kick, he actually calls it his Giga kick, and it's that liver shot. So I would be, I'd look for him to try and do that as well. We talked about Giga's record before the UFC. His fights, his competition's record before the UFC was 7-57. I mean, absolute tomato cans. And I'm just not high on Giga. I've kind of been looking for an opportunity to fade him whenever he fights in the UFC, and I really do think that this is the time to do it. Whenever he was facing Jamal Emmers, it seemed like Jamal really figured him out about halfway through that second round. I just think Giga, he has some glaring errors, and he's not going to be able to utilize his kickboxing like he would in a kickboxing ring. He really has to worry about Omar's takedown and top pressure. And Omar's going to be throwing the harder shots. I mean, whether it's with his hands or with his feet, he throws harder. I think Giga's flashy and he's exciting to watch, but I do think that he's going to get shown up in this fight. I think Omar, he's coming in with momentum. Like you said, it's his first time at featherweight, so if he does make weight, look for that body shot to happen. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he comes in over the weight limit. This is somebody who, I didn't know much about him before looking up some of his tape, but after I watched him, I was, I think that this fight will be under 2.5 rounds, and I think it's sitting at like a plus 190 right now, and I've already played it. I think that it's a good one to try and get early as far as it being under 2.5 rounds. Now, I kind of knock Giga for his kind of one-sided attack where he'd like to keep it standing, but he's not completely helpless on the ground. Jamal Emmers did get him on the ground, and we saw him sweep Jamal Emmers, and that really impressed me, so I don't think that he's helpless on the ground. I do think that he'd want to keep it on the feet, even though I think he's going to feel those shots from Omar and really start to second-guess himself on whether he wants to be in there or not. So if there was a fight that Giga's had in the UFC so far to fade, this would be the one, and I'm pretty high on Omar.
I agree with you, man. So you touched on his ground game. I think that's where Omar really has the most potential to shine. If he does get this fight to the mat, I think he will... he might finish it in that round that it goes to the mat. I think Omar's going to have the much superior grappling skills and be too heavy on top. A lot of guys who do drop that weight class and cut that extra 10 pounds, they put that and more back on come fight night and stuff. So I look at Omar, he fills out so much more than Giga does. Two different, body styles and stuff there, but exact same reach, even though Giga's got a little size on him. I think we agree here that Omar's going to get this done, and, I like the under 2.5 line, but if it goes to decision, Giga by plus 200 by decision is not a line that I'm afraid to play. It's probably a fight that for me I'm probably going to stay away with. It's a tough fight to call. But it's going to be a hell of a fight, I think.
And just touching on Omar's game plan coming into it, I expect him to try and chop at Giga's legs early, try and cut down on that movement, because that's really what Giga relies on. And then also I expect him to kind of try and read Giga for his high kicks and try and catch one and dump him. And I think that's how we'll get it to the ground, is by catching one of Giga's kicks. And
then next guy here cost us a little bit of money.
Yeah, I'm still a little salty about it. I think that he won. So AlQaisi 8-4 versus Tony Kelley, who's 6-2. Now, yes, I do think that he beat Irwin Rivera, but it is what it is. It was a lackluster fight.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was nothing that I would want to rewatch by any means. Not too high on Ali, man. I do think that he's UFC caliber, but I don't think he'll ever break the top 15. I think he's good where he's at right now. On the prelims, I think that's where he'll stay. Now, he should, in this fight, I think that he should try and test Tony Kelley's body. This is Tony Kelley's first fight at bantamweight. Right. Usually fights at featherweight. So again, the weight cutting, it could be a problem, and we've seen Tony Kelley get hurt to the body plenty of times.
In that Kai Kamaka fight he did.
Yeah. So if Ali has any wits to him, he should try and utilize a body kick early and try and hurt him. Because I got to imagine that Tony Kelley, body's a hard one to condition, right? And especially when you're cutting even more weight, I got to imagine that that's going to come into play as well. Now, Tony Kelley, sitting at a minus 220, I don't really know why. He's never beaten anybody with over 4 wins on their record, and that speaks volumes to me. He does have, whenever I watched his fight against Kai Kamaka, he has great footwork and really sets up these weird angles with his feints, and it exposes people. So I look for him to start each round really, really fast, and if there is going to be a finish, I expect it to be in that first 2 minutes of each of the rounds, because he does start to slow down and try and starts to get comfortable as the round goes on. So I definitely lean towards Tony Kelley, but I'm not playing him at a minus 220, especially with the unknowns of him coming down to bantamweight.
Yeah, so the odds for me a little bit wide as well. I think these should be much closer. Both of these guys on the receiving end of some close decision losses in their debuts, with Kaisi to Irwin Rivera and Kelley there to Kai Kamaka. Those were some really good fights, but Kaisi he doesn't do it for me, man. He gives up the takedown real easy in that third round, where the fight was super close. I don't feel like he had that dog in him that Irwin Rivera had in him. I was upset, of course, that we lost the bet on him and stuff, but I do think he lost that fight, and I think the third round really swayed the judge's decision in that one a whole bunch. Casey, real basic with his attacks. He got the calf kick. And he really just has the overhand right. Outside of that, he really doesn't throw too much, man. He really looks to snatch up the neck with the guillotine and pull guard on that. So while watching past fights, I actually re-Googled this guy's name because I thought I was watching the wrong highlight clip. He did not used to be bald. He used to have a head full of hair, and it really caught me off guard, man. I swear, I closed the freaking video down and re-Googled it. I was like, this is the same video. It was weird, man. Now he looks like he doesn't have hair anywhere, and like I said, caught me way off guard, man. But with Tony Kelley, the drop down to 35 and the ton of question marks is what makes me think that this is too wide. Now, he's dropping down, but he's going to have a pretty big size advantage in this fight. He did take home the $50K fight of the night with Kai Kamaka, so with $50K in the bank, how much do you train? Do you live lavish for a couple weeks and stuff? I don't really know. Both of these guys are over 30 years old and stuff, so getting a little late start to the UFC and stuff here. It comes down to Tony Kelley. I think he defends the takedowns a little bit better, and I think he's a better striker on the feet. He really does, like you said, with his feints, he sets up really good angles, and he loves to dig the hook to the body himself. But we don't really see Kaise dig the body enough to make me think that stuff's going to change this fight here. So I am going to lean Tony Kelley to get this one done by decision. But I just think that if this fight gets dirty in the dirty boxing and the clinch ranges, I think Tony Kelley's size and just grit is going to get this fight done.
I think we're on the same page there.
Next fight, man, is one I'm excited for. It's Impa Kasanganay, who's 8-0, versus Joaquin Buckley, who's 10-3. And this fight's taking place at middleweight. Currently, man, Man, Impa's at the minus 255 to the comeback for Buckley at plus 215. And for me, Impa is still green, man. And to give somebody the odds like that, almost 3-1, it's a little wide for me, man, when, Impa's not fought good guys and Buckley's spent some time in Bellator and fighting Holland and fighting, his loss in Bellator to Logan Story. Logan Story is an undefeated MMA prospect who was a legit collegiate wrestler, and, he just got out-wrestled, and you really can't fault him for that loss. The other loss he revenged on his record. Buckley's a guy that at 26 years old has got a good amount of experience underneath him already, and I like him to be around for a long time. Even with 2 losses here, if Impa wins, I don't think they cut him. He's exciting when he's in there, and I think the ceiling for both of these guys is very, very high. That with Impa, I talked about him being green, man, but some people are all over him like Khamzat, man. They hype Impa up to be this guy that, for me, I just don't see yet. I'm real hesitant to jump the bandwagon. I say that because when you're fighting guys, on some of the level that Impa has fought, I want to see you finish these guys, man. And with 1 TKO and just 1 sub, he just relies on himself to just wear on them. And I like it. And, he almost fights like Kamaru Usman to an extent. He dominates the fight, but it's not the fight I want to see, when a guy is this hyped up. He's super well-rounded. He's technical with his boxing, with his takedowns, with his leg kicks. I see the hype behind him, but I'm still hesitant to jump on him, man. But he knows the hype. He really believes in himself, man. There's not a guy that on the roster, it's Conor McGregor-like in an extent to my. Impa really believes in himself, and I love how often he wants to fight, man. This is going to be his 3rd fight in 2 months. It's what everybody likes to see. It's what Dana wants. So I can't fault him, man. And jumping over to Buckley, I really can't say anything bad about him, man. I was impressed with the cardio and how long he was able to throw shots like that against Kevin Holland. But Holland did him dirty, man. Holland really, I think, could have put him away in the first round with that first shot he dropped him. But he took him into deep water and drowned him, in my opinion. He was shit-talking him. He was making him second-guess everything he was throwing. He stayed calm under every shot that Buckley threw at him, and that's going to be a big thing in this fight, is how calm is Impa going to be when some of those shots are coming at him, Mm-hmm. The thing I like about Buckley is guys like that oftentimes look for the power shot, and Buckley doesn't, man. He's a 3 to 5 punch combo thrower every single time. He reminds me of Costa. He really does. He throws combos. He throws hooks. He doesn't care where they land, whether they're going to be on the body, your head. Like, they do damage where they land because he's so strong. And I like the way he approaches fights. He comes out swinging. Impa really has to be careful with this guy, in my opinion, and stick to his boring game plan and probably not get another finish here. I think he's going to grind on this guy, put him on the cage, win 3 rounds. I'm actually probably going to play Impa by decision at even money. I like him to get this done over 15 minutes.
I don't mind that at all. It's hard not to touch on Impa's inexperience. Yeah. He's only been a pro since January of 2019. Now, it's really cool that he has eight wins already, and I would say that momentum is definitely on his side, but, Buckley's experience is, far more than Impa's. He's been a pro since 2013 and only having 4 or so more fights than him. Yeah, it's not like he's fighting as often, but he still has all these opportunities to improve his game and change how he comes at different opponents with that type of time to improve his game. So Impa, this is between the two of them. I said that this was kind of the battle of the bodies.
Yeah, they're physical specimens.
It's insane, and I really would like to see Joaquin Buckley. I think he could have some success at welterweight. He does look like he might have some weight to shed.
Yeah.
At sitting at 185, and he has fought at welterweight before, so I'm wondering if it was just too hard of a cut, or I'm not really sure. But I do really like how Buckley fights. Yeah, I always said he kind of throws punches like Mike Tyson. Mm-hmm. He rips from the waist, and he throws in combinations like you said. He really impressive, and I know it's going to be an exciting fight with him. Now he does, it's not that he gasses early, but he can throw so much power that it does start to slow down.
The volume slows down.
Yeah. Where Impa, for his build, it's really impressive with how much cardio he actually has. Like, he looks just as good in the third round as he does the first. And
Impa's real good about conserving that energy and not putting everything into his punches.
And it really,
himself.
Man, it's pretty incredible that he can adjust his game plan as the rounds go on. And that's just something that you wouldn't necessarily expect from somebody who's 8-0. I think most of the hype is coming from people who are training with him. So they see it in the gym. We just haven't seen it out here. And maybe this will be the time where we, really get to see all of the tools that Impa possesses. I think that he's been really lucky getting Maki Pitolo and Buckley as far as size-wise in the middleweight division, because being at 5'11" and 75-inch reach, he's gonna walk into somebody who's sitting at 6'3", 6'4", and I'd really be curious to see how he handles that, because right now, his jab looks amazing, but he's fighting guys that are 5'9" and 5'10". So I don't know how much longer that's gonna play a factor with him just being able to hide behind the jab and then close the distance whenever he feels good with it. I think Impa, his game plan coming into this one, I would think, is to try and get it to the ground as early as possible. Try and wear on Buckley. Buckley does carry around a lot of muscle, and I gotta imagine that just for his sake, I don't think that he's going to weather the storm like Kevin Holland did. Kevin Holland, he impressed the shit out of me whenever he fought Buckley. He was just able to stay so calm in that pocket, where I think Impa, he could expose himself a little bit. So I expect him to shoot for a takedown early and try and wear on Buckley until he feels comfortable. And then I think that he could coast to a decision, like you said. Buckley's a tough son of a bitch, and I see Impa getting this done as well. I know that his coaches said, they praised him about how patient he is in his fight and that the knockout will come. So Impa, although he does have 3 decision wins right now in the UFC, at some point he's going to get that crazy knockout because he does possess those tools. So I'm not really sure how this one's going to end, but I got to imagine Impa's game plan is to come and get it to the ground early, and I do think that he's going to coast this one out pretty easily, whether it's inside the distance or by decision. I think he gets it done relatively easy.
Yeah, so we do agree on the Impa pick and probably a super heavy grappling approach there to get that job done.
All right, moving on to some big boys. Chris Daukaus, who's 9-3, coming in and fighting Rodrigo Nascimento. Now, Chris Daukaus, he's on a 2-fight win streak coming off that first-round KO of Parker Porter. Looked phenomenal in that fight. I think for a heavyweight, he moves his feet really well, and you wouldn't necessarily expect that from somebody with his build.
Yeah.
It looks like he's carrying a lot of unnecessary weight, but that might just be his body style.
Yeah, he does move good.
Right. And, I think that right now he's really making a name for himself other than just being the brother of Kyle Daukaus, I really think that he could offer the heavyweight division something to look at. And his stand-up, whenever he was fighting Parker Porter, he was doing a lot of pull counters, and it flowed, man. Like, I was really impressed with the way that he looked, and he has that killer mentality where if he sees that you're hurt, he will go for that finish, and I really like that about him. Now, moving on to Rodrigo, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
He's a big dude. He's got an 80-inch reach, and it's not like that is his fight style. He will throw early on, but that's just to set up a takedown. He doesn't mind standing in the pocket and banging, but at the end of it, a shot's going to come right after that. He's got 6 wins by sub. 2 of his UFC wins are both by sub. So I expect that to be his approach. He's Brazilian, so he's got that grappling experience, and he's really strong in the clinch. Now, I watched Kyle Daukaus in the Parker Porter fight, and Kyle Daukaus in the clinch was able to come over top and really throw some powerful shots and really punish Parker, where I think Rodrigo, he's just going to be so much stronger in the clinch that I think that he's going to be able to get this one to the ground and get it done relatively easy.
Yeah, so we do agree there that Nascimento is going to win that fight, and Nascimento was somebody that I cashed really big on against that Dontel Mays. I got him at minus 130, and it was a straight grappler versus striker, and the striker couldn't grapple for shit. And in my opinion, I don't know if Chris Daukaus is as good as Dontel Mays. I really do think that Rodrigo Nascimento has a really good chance of getting this done easily inside the distance. He trains at American Top Team, Jiu-Jitsu ace, man. He's never seen third round. He's 100% finish rate. We're moved to the side of Chris Daukaus, and the number one thing I have about him, too, is his footwork. The guy moves very, very light on his feet for heavyweight. But you know what you get with him, man, and it's a really dangerous first round, and after that he really does he starts to slip off a little bit. He's got 3 losses, and he's been finished in 2 of those there. Now, Rodrigo Nascimento is a legit black belt on the mat, but it can't go without note that Chris Daukaus is a black belt himself on the mat, and I'm really curious to see the difference between these guys, 2 black belts, because I don't think Daukaus is a slouch by no means, but I do think the level of it, that Nascimento is just going to be a little too much for Chris Daukaus, and he does stick to the game plan with those heavy-handed strikers like Dontel Mays. And I mean, Dontel Mays is, don't take my word on it, man, but Stefan Struve and Volkov, I think, are the only 2 guys that are bigger than Dontel Mays in the heavyweight division. So, I mean, Dontel Mays is like 6'7", 6'8", and Nascimento went out there and executed the game plan perfect, took him down and put him away. Now, I know heavyweight fights are super, super unpredictable, and maybe minus 290 is a little steep, but Nascimento inside the distance at minus 150, or even a sub at plus 150, are both very, very playable lines. Now, you know, the sub is a little bit more tricky there. You know, you don't want a ground and pound to cost you that money. So for me, it's Nascimento inside the distance at minus 150. As of right now, is my heaviest play of the week.
Gotcha. And I don't mind that at all. I'm with you. It's hard to bet any. It's heavyweights are similar to girl fights.
Yeah.
If there's a huge line shift, I don't like that.
Yeah.
You know, realistically, anything could happen with one punch, especially from these big of a guys. So I do see Nascimento getting this done relatively easy. I like the inside the distance play, and that's probably one that we're going to put on the podcast.
Yeah.
You know, the more I think about it, I think you're right. You know,
that's a good one to play. And the next one, man, is middleweights, man. We got Tom Breese, who's 11-2, fighting KB Bhullar, who's 8-0. And both of these guys, you know, we just touched on it, the 6'3" and the 6'4" frame for middleweight. You know, Impa sitting there at like 5'10" and 5'11". So these are the guys we're talking about where Impa's going to run into guys who are, you know, a bit taller than him and stuff. Tom Breese, man, he fills out great for 185 compared to Bhullar. Bhullar is a little bit more taller and lanky. Tom Breese hasn't been able to catch a break here lately with the injuries and stuff. You know, he's injured on and off. Grappling bouts is really about all he's been able to do, and he needs to get as many grappling bouts in him as he can because, in my opinion, the dude can't wrestle, and Brandon Allen really, really showed that. Brandon Allen made quick work of him on the mat. Tom Breese has got a good left hand, man. He finds a home with it, whether over the top, whether it's uppercut he put Dan Kelley away, but that's this dude's only UFC win is Dan Kelley, and it's a Dan Kelley that doesn't fight anymore, a Dan Kelley that was super old, that had been put away by Brunson like the fight before. A fight that doesn't impress me for a 29-year-old in Tom Breese. He's supposed to do exactly what he did. KB Bhullar, coming off a win over Matt Dwyer, who actually did spend some time in the UFC. He does train with Tanner Boser there in Canada. The guy's got a very extensive background in Muay Thai and in Taekwondo. And I watched a little interview with him last week, and this guy's favorite attack to throw in training, and he says he hopes to knock somebody out with it one day, is the axe kick. So look for him to throw it in the fight, man. You don't hardly ever see that attack thrown. I've never seen a knockout with it. So, I mean, if he calls the shot and does that, I will absolutely freak out on Saturday night. These guys both really aren't tested, in my opinion. I think Tom Breese is just going to be the more physically stronger guy in there. And although Brandon Allen did expose him on the mat, I think he's going to be a little bit better grappler. And if he gets his hands on Bhullar, he'll really show that physical strength advantage that he has.
Yeah, so, you know, this is only Tom Breese's third fight at middleweight. And like you said, he's 1-1 right now, and you kind of see where he fits into that middleweight division. I think he's right at the Daniel Kelley. He's excellent, and he does have some wins that he's pulled out that I did not think was going to happen. But realistically, I think he's a middle-tier middleweight. And then, you know, Tom Breese, you touched on his injuries. He's been in the UFC since 2015, but realistically, he's not getting that type of experience that he should be if he's been in the UFC for 5 years.
Right.
He is a southpaw, and he throws his jabs from his hip and has excellent boxing. And so, like, I expect Tom Breese to try and establish that jab early and then start following up with a straight left like you talked about. Mm-hmm. So I do like his fight style. I think that it'll be exciting. On the other hand, I didn't really get to see much tape on KB Bhullar. Right. Like, all of his fights are hard to find, and the only one that I could find was from 2012 whenever he was an amateur. But from what I did find in that fight, he does have a great pumping jab. He's 6'4", and I couldn't even get a reach on him, but I imagine that it's bigger than 73.5 inches on Tom Breese's side.
Right.
So although I'm sure Tom would like to establish that jab, KB might be the much longer man and might be able to get that on him. So I expect KB to kind of throw some more obstacles in Breeze's way than what the odds makers are telling me. Minus 245 for Breeze seems a little wide, in my opinion, although I don't know much about KB Bhullar. It's really just his size and his undefeated record that makes me think, maybe he will have something that we're not too aware of, and I think that it would be on par with Daniel Kelley, So I'm excited to see this fight play out, although I don't have enough knowledge on it to really give you a hard pick. I do lean towards Tom Breese, though.
Yeah, so I'm the same way. Leaning toward Tom Breese, but not enough out there for me to really to play this fight in any way. I did forget to mention, I did see, I don't think it was a fight. It was like, we touched on the Taekwondo background and stuff, and there was like some clips of him and stuff. He has a really great head kick. And I really do think that if there's a strike that finishes Tom Breese on the feet, I think we're going to see KB Bhullar do it with a head kick. So if he does get the finish, I think it'll be an exciting one.
I'd like to see that for sure. Do you expect it to be a finish? Like, would you play the under 2.5?
To be honest with you, no. That's a fight that I'm staying away from all in general.
And I don't mind that at all, honestly. I wouldn't feel comfortable telling our viewers or anything to pick on this fight.
I know the next fight's a guy that pretty high on this year in 2020.
Oh, heck yeah, the Moroccan takeover. I'm all about Youssef Zalal, who's 10-2, fighting Ilia.
Yeah, Ilia Topuria.
Ilia Topuria, who's 8-0. So, Youssef Zalal, 100% finish rate before the UFC. Yeah. Now that he's in the UFC, he's gone to 3 decisions. And so I think that you really are starting to see him, finally get that level of competition where he's about to start, really getting tested.
Yeah.
Youssef, he's constantly changing direction. And whenever he was fighting Peter Barrett, I know he caught him with that early spinning heel kick that almost knocked him on his ass cold. Yeah. But Peter, once he stepped in that cage, it was like he couldn't figure out a way to close the distance like I thought he was. I think I even picked Peter Barrett in that fight.
Wait, I know you at least picked him to make that fight dirty and close, and
right.
It wasn't far from it.
I'm pretty sure Peter Barrett's nickname is Dirty something.
Yeah,
and so, like, I really expected him to come in and try and mess with Youssef, but I think his footwork is similar to, like, to Stephen Thompson.
That's exactly who I was going to compare him to.
Yes. And you might not know just what to expect whenever you're there until he's right in front of you, and it kind of like makes you pause for a second.
You freeze. Yeah.
So I like Youssef Zalal to get this done. If I was Topuria, I would definitely try and bring that pressure to him, get him up against the cage, try and cut off that footwork, and whether it's the low calf kicks to start it off or just making it dirty and getting it on the cage, that's got to be his go-to. He's got 7 submission wins, and I got to imagine that that's his go-to as far as trying to beat Zalal, because honestly, unless you're a super high level striker, I can't see you even giving Zalal competition on the feet. I know Topuria, he has like an excellent left body shot.
Yes,
and we saw some tape on that where he ripped to the body a couple times and can go right back upstairs, and so it keeps you guessing. And maybe he'd like to implement that, but it's going to take him slowing Zalal down before he's ever going to be able to get that offense off on him.
So yeah, this fight is going to be, in my opinion, much closer than that Peter Barrett fight, and the odds definitely suggest it. So yeah, Zalal making the 4th walk of 2020 might be the number one I think Bobby Green might have just made his fourth walk. I'd have to check the notes on him, but Zalal is without a doubt one of the most active guys we've seen this year. Part of that Moroccan takeover with Azatar, who've really, really looked great lately. You touched on the footwork, man, and I have a note here of comparing him to somebody like Wonderboy. He makes people freeze at the striking range, man, and his footwork is really good. He closes distance, gets back out of distance really well. He trains out of Factory X, Muay Thai. This guy is a very, very technical striker, and he's fighting a shorter opponent again, which he just had a ton of success with Peter Barrett. Mm-hmm. One thing about Zalal is, he doesn't have a ton of fan base and hype behind him, but he loves the spotlight. When he loves fighting, he loves getting the mic when he's done. But this is the first legit wrestler, in my opinion, that we're seeing Zalal run across, and it's the first guy that I really do see potential to give Zalal some trouble, man. Zalal's got the cardio edge, and I think he's really going to have to lean on that in this fight. But he's definitely this fight's not going to stay on the feet the full time. I think Zalal's going to have to work to get up some in this one. Topuria, man, you want to talk about a guy, like I said, who's going to bring the fight to Zalal. I think it's Topuria, man. I think he's going to do what we wanted Peter Barrett to do. I don't think Zalal is going to bully him and stuff like we saw Zalal do with that big size advantage with Peter Barrett. He got his back and he was almost just messing with him and stuff. Mm-hmm. We felt like he could have got the finish in that fight and didn't. Man, the body shot that Topuria loves to throw. I think if he really does back Zalal up against the fence, that's a weapon that he really needs to look to use on Zalal, who's got a 5'10" frame. There at featherweight, so thin around the body and stuff. Now, Topuria is sitting at a plus 160, and as of right now, I haven't pulled the trigger on it. But I told you earlier, if that gets above a 185, I think I am going to pull the trigger on it. I think he has some tools to present Youssef Zalal that Zalal's just not seen from any of those opponents yet, and Topuria's never been to a decision before, and I like him to bring this fight to Zalal and either finish Zalal probably by submission.
I was about
with
to
his
say,
wrestling.
I wonder what those submission lines are, because if you like the plus 185-ish for Topuria, I wonder what the submission if it's line. 225. That's actually how I would see it getting done too if he does.
But at the same time, man, when you close the distance on somebody with good footwork like that, sometimes they're not there, and sometimes they make you pay for it and stuff. So this is a fight that I'm back and forth on. And until earlier today, I didn't have a pick for. Right now, I am going to lean with Youssef Zalal, who's been the more active of the two. But man, Topuria is really going to make this fight interesting, and it's a good fight on Saturday.
I like that. I also lean towards Zalal. Although, I am curious on that Topuria subline. It might be worth looking to sprinkle on later on in the week. Maybe if it's just like a quarter of a unit or something. But,
absolutely, it's something we definitely need to look into.
Yeah, for sure.
And man, second fight here on the main card is a guy for me that my biggest play of the year so far was on Tom Aspinall at a minus 225 against overinflated Jake Collier, who was like up 2 weight classes or something. I mean, it was ridiculous. Tom Aspinall did exactly what he was supposed to do in that fight, and to get him at a minus 225, I was all over it, man. Spivak is who we called out. He wanted him. He got it, and Spivak backed out of this fight here. So he got the newcomer in Alan Baudot. So, man, I could say a bunch of stuff about Tom Aspinall. He is a black belt, so a lot of people, they focus on his boxing and stuff, and they think, I can take this guy down, and it's gonna be like Francis. He ain't gonna be able to do anything. And no, Tom's a legit black belt on the mat, man. He trains with Darren Till. He's very well rounded. He's finished 7 of his 8 wins by KO. The other one by heel hook, I believe. He heel hooked the guy. So got some subs on the ground, man, but every single win under 2 minutes in the first round and stuff. I'm curious to see him outside of the first round, and if somebody really wants to wear on him. His boxing is what he relies on. He's got a great pull counter. He lured Collier into putting out a jab or throwing the right hand, and made him pay for it immediately. Exactly what we expected. Both of these guys have a 100% finish rate between the two, so I know the odds are absolutely ridiculous, but this fight's not going to decision in my opinion. On the other side is Alan Baudot, who is I think at an MMA lab in France there, who's starting to catch some steam. And Baudot, everybody knows, should have 2 losses on that record and stuff. He absolutely got dominated in his last fight on the mat. The dude ragdolled him, had multiple guard passes, took his back, finished him, I think, by rear naked choke, and then, popped for marijuana and stuff and got your win overturned. How it's not a no contest and becomes a win on his behalf,
crazy.
It baffles me.
Yeah.
Neither one of these guys, man, they're all fighting tomato cans. They really are. Neither guy has anybody worth noting on their record. The one loss that we see Baudot have, I mean, it was one of the worst knockouts I've seen. He got KO'd stiff. On the other hand, Tom Aspinall, I believe, was heel hooked in a loss, and then holds a little commonality with John Jones' loss because he 12-6 elbowed somebody. So Tom Aspinall, in my opinion, outside of a heel hook, I don't want to call it a fluke loss because it's a loss, but sometimes that stuff happens. We watched the Joker just do it to Gastelum and stuff. That's a submission that if you just yank on and rip, you're going to tap sometimes, I just think that Alan Baudot has nothing to offer Tom Aspinall on the feet here, and nothing to offer him on the mat. I like Tom Aspinall to get another first-round finish. The only thing Alan has for him, he's much more agile. He's fought at light heavyweight a couple times and stuff, so I don't even want to say he's going to be quicker on the feet because Tom's footwork and stuff is really, really good, man. I'm all over Tom Aspinall at a minus 440. I can't play it, but I have parlayed him with somebody in the card.
Nice. I don't mind that at all. You talked about his 4-fight win streak right now. They're all coming by first round KO. Yeah. So I don't know how much you can really gain from any of those, especially his last fight against Jake Collier. That is the easiest opponent in the heavyweight division right now. You said he trains with Darren Till. He covers distance with his right hand and sets it up almost exactly like Darren Till sets up his left hand, and you can see those, that comparison is perfect. Realistically, I think for a heavyweight, he fights almost exactly like Darren Till fights, especially with the left hand. Now he just has a threat on the ground as well. Where Alan, like you said, he usually fights at light heavyweight, and he has a judo Muay Thai foundation. Now, he trains at the MMA Factory with Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gaines, so I don't think that the size or strength advantage of Tom Aspinall is going to be anything that he's not used to. It's hard to say how he's going to look at heavyweight, right? I don't know if it's going to be good weight or bad weight.
In short notice.
Right. There's a couple of things that are working definitely in Aspinall's advantage. Now, Alan, he throws some wild stuff. He will throw a spinning elbow. He will throw just some wild stuff. So expect him to try and land something kind of crazy. And I wouldn't be surprised if he caught Aspinall. Aspinall's the better fighter for sure. But I got to think Alan's going for broke right here. And it's just his opportunity to get in the UFC and make a name for himself. Yeah. So pressure's all on Aspinall to get this done for sure. I would never play Alan, but don't be surprised if he throws some spinning shit and catches him, right?
I know the odds are almost just as ridiculous as the money line for Aspinall of this getting done inside the distance. So it's a fight, like I said, it's for any value, it's got to be put in a parlay on the card.
Yeah, for sure. Now we move to a fight, at middleweights, I love the middleweight class, but this is not one that I'm just pumped about.
And I said the same thing. It could have been further down on the fight. I could have replaced him at this main card position with a better fight on the card.
Yeah, 100%. We've got Markus Perez at 12-3 versus.
I got this.
Forgive me.
I got this.
Okay.
Dricus du Plessis.
Dricus du Plessis.
I had to look that up. I got it spelled out in syllables.
Nice. At 14-2. Now Markus Perez, he's coming off that loss to Wellington Turman. He looked awful against Wellington Turman. Wellington Turman, I thought that he might have the advantage on the feet, but it looked like he also had the advantage on the ground as well. He was able to kind of take Markus Perez down, multiple times at least. Now, I will say that Markus Perez, he's got a couple things working in his favor. He trains at ATT, and he is very calm in the pocket. Even when he is getting extremely pressured, you can see that his mind's working whenever he has an opponent right up on him. And I think that he's really cerebral in that pocket, and that could that could play a factor. He's really good at capitalizing on his opponent's mistakes, and we've seen that in some of the fights that he's won. Something that I don't necessarily like about Perez is he doesn't have much power for a middleweight, and he doesn't have much volume for a middleweight. And those are two things that you're going to need at 185. So, looking over at Duplessis, 100% finish rate, 9 subs and 5 KOs. He's a motherfucker.
Yeah, you can't ask for any more.
Right. He's going to be a problem. He's got a K1 kickboxing foundation, and his only loss since 2015, he's avenged. So I do lean towards him pretty heavily, actually. And sitting at a minus 150, it's another one that I feel comfortable putting just a straight bet on. I think Markus Perez is getting a little bit too much credit, especially with the opponents that he has beaten. Ian Heinisch, that's his most notable one in my opinion, and Heinisch has some silly losses. Yeah. So I honestly put that in a silly loss category, and I don't give Markus Perez too much credit for that win. So I lean towards Duplessis. From what I've seen, I think he throws the heavier shots, and I look for him to get this one done.
Yeah, so we actually don't agree on this one, and I actually have a play on Markus Perez's money line at a plus 130 to get the vet there at the underdog, the guy who I think experience number of fights wise about the same, but the guys that Markus Perez has been in there with compared to Duplessis is a bit different for me, and I think Markus Perez he doesn't throw the power you talked about, he doesn't throw the volume, but he is the more of the technical. And, he's been in there with that better competition. So, Markus Perez, man, it's win-loss, win-loss. He can't get anything going, no consistency, can't get any steam going. But he did come up through LFA, and I touch on it all the time. That's the best minor organization that brings these prospects in. And this guy beat Ian Heinisch for the belt. He finished Ian Heinisch, and then he relinquishes the belt to get his UFC shot. So, I love to see that, man. I think, like you said, he's cerebral in the pocket. He's got a good head on his shoulders when it comes to his fight IQ, but sometimes he just doesn't throw the volume to get it done. And at a 6'1" frame, sometimes you do run into those guys who are just a little bit more powerful than you that can. Wellington Thurman, I think, is probably like 6'4". He's a big middleweight. I think there is some value on Markus Perez here, being the veteran. He's got a nasty left body kick, left high kick. He throws it. He switches the levels with it great. That being said, Duplessis, that South African newcomer, has some of the hardest kicks that I've seen. This guy, he throws them as hard as the Edson Barboza there in our co-main event. And you're right, man. I think Duplessis is on the juice right now. That guy is, he looks as good as Joaquin Buckley and freaking Impa, man. And for some reason, I don't want to say he's going to pop because this is a short notice fight for him. Markus Perez is supposed to fight Rodolfo Vieira, which if Wellington Thurman dominated you on the mat, the black belt, multiple-time world jiu-jitsu champion Rodolfo Vieira was about to abuse Markus Perez. I think it's a much easier opponent for him here. But he's getting a 26-year-old who, 26-year-olds, man, sometimes some young guys come in there with a lot to prove, and it's going to be what kind of head does Dricus have on his shoulders? Is he going to come in there composed? Is he going to come in there and blow his wad that first round looking for the finish that he's always gotten? Markus Perez is going to be a hard guy to finish, and if he doesn't get it done in the first round, I see him wasting a lot of energy that first round trying to get it done. I think there's just a ton of value on the 30-year-old who has the UFC experience, who's been in training camp. This 26-year-old is staying ready. When you're young like that, you don't really let yourself, get out of fight shape and stuff. So I think Duplessis is definitely going to come in here in good shape. This is a super, super tough fight to call. I think it's a fun fight as well, man. But I have played the Markus Perez money line at a plus 130. So we know differing views, but man, I think we can agree that's probably one of the toughest fights to call on the card.
Definitely one of the toughest fights to call, and I think that speaks because we don't have much information on Duplessis other than just looking at his record and knowing that he has 9 sub wins and 5 KOs. I think he has multiple paths to victory, and where I see Perez, you talked about his experience, and that's kind of where I was coming from on he's able to capitalize on mistakes, especially from a 26-year-old newcomer. I could see where you're coming from with that. So maybe I get a little carried away, but I do like Du Plessis, and maybe if not the minus 150, then I would like to see what the inside the distance line is, and then maybe play that.
Du Plessis is pretty sure he trains at Tiger Muay Thai, and pure striking wise, Tiger Muay Thai might be the best camp out there. If you're not looking at how well rounded the fighters are, pure striking wise, Tiger Muay Thai is without a doubt top 2 or 3. So this guy's going to come in here with some serious striking skills that will pose some problems for Markus. Super close fight, but I do see the value on the vet there. And man, this next fight back at heavyweight, I mean, is probably the fight that I'm the least interested in on the whole card. Surprisingly, they got Ben Rothwell at 38-12, fighting the number 14 ranked heavyweight Marcin Tybura, who's 19-6. Both guys getting up there in age. Ben Rothwell is now 38. And I'm going to be the first to tell you, I thought his career was over coming off that, the 2-year suspension and stuff that he had. But surprisingly, the dude's on a 2-fight win streak right now. And the same with Tybura. Tybura, 2 or 3 years ago, he lost 4 of his last 5 fights to, they were to top-level competition, don't get me wrong. But was in a tough spot fighting for his job, and now he's on a 2-fight win streak as well. So both these guys have quietly stayed relevant, and I think Ben Rothwell is just slightly out there on the top 15. I think he's sitting at like 18 or something. And after a 2-year laying off with all the surgence of heavyweights, it's not bad for Ben Rothwell. He's always made himself relevant in that heavyweight division there. These guys, they're on the slower end of the heavyweights. You know what I'm saying? They both they throw slow. They're not as technical, but Ben Rothwell is twice as flat-footed as Tybura is. Tybura will bounce around a little bit, at least for that first round. Both guys really tend to gas out. You got Rothwell, you could hear him and OSP both, you could hear him breathing, through the TV when there was no crowd there. And I'll be the first to tell you that he was not happy with that performance. Ben Rothwell really, really looks to back you up against the fence and to wear on you on the fence and to explode with the shots. Rothwell's not somebody that knocks people out in the middle of the octagon. He really looks to use his forward pressure to put you back up against the fence where he'll get that knockout or where he'll look to lean on you and get that choke like he did against Josh Barnett. Now, Tybura, on the other hand, I had spoke about, he was just a little bit better, not as flat-footed on the feet. This guy's chin has let him down multiple times now and stuff, where you really can't say the same for Rothwell. So, if Rothwell lands a good shot, I could see it putting Tybura away, but at a minus 145, I'm not playing it too hard. I sent you the bet earlier. It's like a 0.3 unit for me, But as an underdog, heavyweights, the higher ranked guy, I like Tybura to get this done by decision. I actually don't see a finish in this fight.
I don't see a finish in this fight either. Both guys coming off of wins over light heavyweights. Yeah. True light heavyweights. Yeah. OSP was a little bit bigger, but I think he put on that weight because he had to. Ben Rothwell comes in weighing at the heavyweight limit every single time, and he really relies on his weight and size to get the majority of his fights done. You touched on him being flat-footed. I put zombie-like attack. So he really is. He just kind of moves forward. He's so freaking big that he hasn't had to change up his game plan too much. Where Marcin, he usually weighs in right at or a little bit under 250. So he's going to be the smaller guy going in there for sure. He's definitely lighter on his feet, especially in those first rounds. Light on his feet. He jumps around a little bit. Whenever I looked at his Maxim Grisham fight, he was light on his feet and looked pretty good. Mm-hmm. I think that he has gotten to the point where he does not care if he puts on a good performance. He's going for the win, And right. So he is 100% okay with making it dirty and kind of trying to do what the heavyweights from last weekend did.
I'm just coasting for a victory, though.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of who it was. here we go. Jorgen de Castro.
Yeah.
In the later rounds,
Felipe
he just tried to lay on him on that cage, and that's what Marcin Tybura will do round after round. He'll just hold on to you, try and get your back to the cage, and be comfortable with just throwing enough shots to not get it broken up, and just coast out a victory. And although I don't like watching it. Good for Tybura, because you're right, his chin has let him down so many times that why would you even want to get into a firefight? Just stick in the UFC, get your wins like you need to, and I also lean towards him, even at the underdog right now. I'm picking Tybura to win. Something to note, you talked about the Josh Barnett finish. If Tybura is going to try and pressure Ben Rothwell up against the cage, he better tuck that chin.
Yeah.
Because his neck is going to be what Ben Rothwell goes after. I remember whenever he did that Josh Barnett fight, I'm pretty sure that was the funky laugh fight where he, and I think he finished him with what Rothwell called a go-go choke.
It's basically kind of like a 5-finger guillotine or something, isn't it? I think he just cups under the chin or something and sets his chest down on it,
Right, something crazy.
Very technical, and Josh Barnett's a great submission artist, so to go out there and submit him, I know that was definitely a notch that Ben likes to have under his belt.
100%. Now, Rothwell being 38 years old and only training out of his own gym, I don't think that he's going to be bringing anything new to the table. Marcin Tybura, he's not a spring chicken by any means either at 34 years old, but I just kind of lean towards him getting it done, whether it's dirty or not. I think that he'll be able to put the pressure on Rothwell as long as the size isn't a problem. Now, Tybura could get in there and realize that Rothwell's just too big to do anything with, and I could see that being the downfall of Tybura, but I think Tybura has the path to victory. So I lean towards him, especially at the underdog, and I'd be curious to see what the Tybura by decision line is, because that's something I'd also look to play.
That is a good line, and that's something I don't have written down, but now that you mention it,
I gotta imagine that
could be a podcast play right there.
Yeah.
And man, the co-main event is a good one.
Co-main event, I'm super excited about. Edson Barboza 20-9 versus Makwan Amirkhani at 16-4. Edson Barboza, it's his second time at featherweight. His last time out, he fought Dan Ige, and I think both of us think that he won that fight.
The whole world, man.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I don't understand how they gave it to Ige. The first two rounds were clearly Barboza, in my opinion. That being said, he's on a 3-fight losing streak. Ige, Felder, and Gaethje. Hard to blame him for any of those. I mean, Felder is on a surgence in in lightweight, and he has looked better now than ever. Gaethje, about to fight for the title, speaks for himself. Now, Barboza overall in his last 7 fights, he's 2-5. But those 2 wins coming against opponents that are legit, Benelia Dariush and Dan Hooker. Those are huge wins, and I think both of those guys are better than Makwan Amirkhani. Barboza, he's he trains with Marlon Moraes and at American Top Team as well. So he's getting this, he's getting a lot of looks in his training camp, and I think that he's training with enough grapplers that Amirkhani's attacks might not be as foreign as you might expect them to be. So I expect Barboza to establish some striking early. I think he's one of the best strikers the UFC has ever seen. And I expect him to try and bait Makwan into shooting for a takedown. And my call for the night is a flying knee up the middle when Makwan shoots. I think that's how I see it getting done. And Makwan, I imagine that his go-to, having 11 submission victories, I gotta imagine that he's going to try and back Edson Barboza up against the cage and then shoot for a takedown. That seems to be the only way that he can get the takedown, is as long as he can pressure his opponent, get his back against the cage, that's when he'll shoot. And he was able to do that in round 1 against Shane Burgos, which I'm pretty sure both of us were pretty surprised about, because Shane's just so big that you wouldn't have thought that he would have been able to ragdoll him.
Man. He straight ragdolled him that first round.
So, that's his path to victory. And sitting at a plus 226, I understand that that's the odds makers have also narrowed it down to that being the only way that he's going to win. Now, that being said, Barboza's footwork is top notch, so he's able to circle out and get his back off the cage, and he has really good sprawls, especially in the open octagon. So Realistically, I wouldn't play Barboza at a minus 250. The odds are just a little bit too skewed, and we've seen Barboza, especially recently, have some trouble, But I'm definitely picking Barboza. I wouldn't play him Mach-1 unless the sub line is significantly higher, which I don't think it's going to be. If he's sitting at a minus 226 or plus 226 right now, money line, I got to imagine his sub line's plus 250.
Right. That's the only path for victory that I see for Mach-1 as well. So neither one of these guys, men, are ever in a boring fight. This is a classic striker versus grappler. And in my opinion, I'm leaning with Edson. Typically the grappler takes this one, but I think the striker's going to take this one here. We had Edson was originally supposed to fight Sadiq Youssef here, and that was going to be an absolute stellar of a fight. Sadiq Youssef is one of the best prospects the UFC has right now, and I think this is a little bit of a step down in competition there to getting Mach-1 Americani now. Edson is, he's a walking highlight reel, man. 6th all-time in leg kicks. The spinning knockout over Terry Etim, that is a top 5 UFC knockout for as long as the UFC will be alive. Like, without a doubt, man. One thing, you touched on that Ige fight. He won that fight, without a doubt, man. I was super, super impressed with that fight, coming down a weight class, taking on a contender who was on like a 4 or 5 fight win streak at the time. Edson has never shied away from a fight, by no means. He's got one of the best resumes in the UFC's history. He's just seen a side of this game that I don't think Americani has seen yet. He's 1-5 in his last 6, 2-5 of his last 7 there. You talk about the Dairouche fight, and that fight right there, man, it shows just the IQ and the level of striking that Edson had, because Dairouche pumped the jab and went for the takedown over and over and over again, and Edson finally got the read on it. Soon as he pumped the jab, Edson did not flinch. He went straight to the flying knee, and it lands the first time he throws it. Man, that is a testament to how good of a striker this guy is. People sleep on Edson's wrestling. Like, people think he's about to go out there and get out-grappled by people, and who besides Khabib has done that?
Right, and
nobody.
I think that made an imprint on people's brains, thinking that he is just an inferior grappler, but it's against Khabib, the best in the world.
He's got 5-round experience, been scheduled for 5-round fights, where Americani is not. I really like this fight for Edson, to be honest with you. Now to move over to Americani, and you got some balls to step up on short notice and fight Edson. Edson makes his opponents pay. You're not in an easy fight with Edson, whether it be Tony Ferguson, Beneil Dairouche, and Dan Ige. They all take some damage unless you put them away quick. And with Americani, he fights out of SBG Ireland there with Connor and them, but Mr. Finland's the exact opposite of all them. He doesn't really have the striking of that gym. He relies on his grappling, and that submission in the first round of Danny Henry last fight was just disgusting, man. He put him away with, I think it was an anaconda choke, and got up and was holding his feet for him and stuff, man. He's got some legit chokes, and he's got to get that choke wrapped in early, because as they get, as the fight goes on, they start sweating. Those chokes that he really likes to rely on, they get harder to pull. He's got 2 UFC losses, man. They are to Shane Burgos, who we talked about how impressive he was in that first round against him, until he really did gas out and gas his arms trying to go for that choke. And Arnold Allen, man, who's on a 9-fight win streak, and about 45 minutes ago just got the notification he's fighting Jeremy Stevens. So finally a good guy for Arnold Allen and stuff, man. So these 2 losses that Americani has, they're no joke. Americani, since entering the UFC, his opponents' record are 92-16. This guy has not been given an easy fight yet. And I love the way he fights. He's not out there for a decision. He's out there to get the fight done. But I don't think he's near the striker of Edson. Edson needs to... The first strike Edson throws is going to be a calf kick. Now, Edson has a bad problem of the first 3 or 4 minutes. He'll tear his opponents up with it, and then he doesn't throw it the rest of the fight. And he can't do that. Edson really has got to... he's got to work the legs a lot. we saw in that Burgos fight when it went to the ground. Burgos was, motioning her to come up, and Amirkhani didn't want to. And I think if Edson really starts to wear those legs out, it's going to do a ton of damage. Nelson's got a super, super good right hand and a super good left hook to the body, which he set Dan Hooker down with, man, folded him like a lawn chair with it. And we see Amirkhani in the southpaw stance, and he has bad trouble getting hit with that right hand. Shane Burgos started to touch him up with it big time in that last fight. So I just think there's so much here that says Edson's going to win this fight. It's a good fight for Edson to get back on track. This is by far a step down in competition from his last 7 fights. It's a good fight. I like Edson to get this one finished. I have Edson parlayed with Tom Aspinall, and I have Edson Barboza inside the distance and the fight under 2.5 rounds. I'm all over this fight on Saturday. I love Edson Barboza to get it done.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't looked at the plays that I'm going to do for it, but all those sound good. I think Edson gets it done. It seems like every time Amirkhani has stepped up in competition, he's folded. And
so you can get Barboza inside the distance at plus money at a plus 110, and the fight under 2.5 rounds is minus 130. And I mean, that works good for both sides because Amirkhani's either going to come out there and get a submission early, or Edson's going to get a finish, I think, in the second or the third round. So I really do like both of those plays. I don't see this fight hitting the judges.
Yeah, one of those will be a podcast pick because the more I think about it, yeah, I'm with you.
And, man, the main event of the evening, this is such a good fight. You have the number 2 ranked Marlon Moraes, who's 23-6, fighting the number 4 bantamweight and Corey Sandhagen, who's 12-2. Super, super good fight. I know bantamweight is by far my favorite division, and I know we agreed on it a couple weeks ago. It's the deepest division right now. There are so many guys. In my opinion, the winner of this fight gets my boy TJ in his return. I really do think the winner. This is lined up to get TJ. Neither one of them have fought before. The fight with Aljo and Peter Yan is still not scheduled yet, and stuff. TJ's got to pick up from somebody. I don't think they're going to give him the title shot after losing to Henry right off the bat. So I think the winner of this fight gets TJ Dillashaw. Now, Marlon Moraes, man, for bantamweight, I don't know if there's a guy I'd rather look like, man. He looks amazing. That being said, it really did cause him some trouble in that Henry Cejudo fight because Henry drug him into deep waters, and that muscle mass and cardio really let him down. That's going to be bad when you're in a 5-round fight with somebody like Corey Sandhagen, who's coming out of Team Elevation with, top-notch cardio, man. Corey Sandhagen really does have potential to make this fight dirty as it goes on. That being said, I mean, Sandhagen, he's about as bad as Donald Cerrone in the first round, in my opinion. He, we saw Aljo take advantage, didn't let Corey get a read, bull rushed him, took his back, choked him. We've seen Yuri Alcantara rush him, take him down, put him in that arm bar. I mean, he was like, that's Gumby, man. Anybody should have tapped to that arm bar.
100%.
John Lineker went out there and tore his legs up at the beginning of that fight. And, Corey takes a while to get going. Marlon Moraes is not the guy that you want to slow start against. You can ask Jimmy Rivera, man. He'll throw the switch kick 10 seconds into the fight and put you down. That left switch kick is super dangerous, and he's got a right kick to the body that's just as dangerous, man. He's coming off the win over Jose Aldo, but again, a lot of people don't think he won that fight. The UFC doesn't think he won that fight because they gave Peter Yan Jose Aldo for the title shot, Not really a good thing. I mean, Jose Aldo got absolutely abused in that fight. I would have much rather seen Marlon Moraes fight Peter Yan, but man, Marlon Moraes, he comes out of the World Series of Fighting. Him and Gaethje are probably the most two notable to come from that organization and have had a lot of success in the UFC. He started out with a loss to Sun Tzu. He's since revenged that, and I think the Cejudo loss is the only loss outside of that. Again, if Marlon keeps this at his range, at his striking range, I think that's where he'll is favored the most. And you had talked about him training with Edson Barboza, and so you'd mentioned that to me earlier, and I didn't really know about that, so I started to look into it. And this is nothing new, man. This is when Frankie Edgar fought Benson Henderson, and Mark Henry brings Edson Barboza up to help train him for Benson Henderson, and he decides to stay up in Jersey, and he brings Marlon Moraes with him. And then back to ATT, to the Armory in South Florida, man. These guys, they've been training together for a long time, and they're vibing in camp. It's an energy that I really, really like. On the other side, I touched on the first round troubles that Corey Sandhagen has, but he has a ton of forward pressure, and he's going to have a pretty big size advantage at 5'11". That's a big bantamweight, man. And one thing I like about him is the volume that he throws, but he does take a second to get that volume going. Corey Sandhagen does hold the record for the most significant strikes per minute in bantamweight history, so he's going to throw there, and that does have potential to wear on Marlon and to gas him with that volume. That being said, man, I think Marlon is just too dangerous as the fight starts, and we've seen Corey slip up and not make the reads correctly in the first round, and it's costed him. He's got to take some of the Henry Cejudo playbook there and use some of the knees up the middle and some of the body shots to wear on Sandhagen. I like Marlon Moraes as a dog here to get this done, and if Sandhagen does, it's super late in the fight.
I agree. Marlon as the dog is ridiculous to me. I mean, looking at his resume, he's beaten John Dodson, Aljamain Sterling, Jimmy Rivera, Rafael Sunsao, and Jose Aldo now. He's fought the far higher level of competition, and it shows with his confidence, especially early on. He's going to look to establish that his power shots early, and in those first 3 rounds, he's one of the hardest hitting bantamweights I've ever seen. He'll throw his kicks without any worry because his ground game is also just as high level as his striking.
Right.
So he's not worried about throwing kicks, and that's something that you see with his low calf kick and, as you mentioned, the left switch kick. That's something that's got Rivera and Aljamain Sterling, right. And he baits them into that. Now on Corey Sandhagen. How is he going to look after suffering his first finish loss? Yeah. I wonder what his mindset's going to be especially in a fight of this caliber. Is he gonna try and look to establish his game plan early? I know that he has more of a footwork based style of attack, so he's gonna try and use the feints and stuff to set up Marlon. But I don't think that Marlon's going to give him the opportunity to get those reads on him. And we talked about him in the Cejudo fight. That would be his only downfall, is that he will blow his wad early. And I think that's why we kind of talked about looking at that 4th and 5th round play on Corey Sandhagen being at plus
1,400 for the 4th and plus 2,000 for the 5th.
Those are great plays.
It's hard not to hedge the Marlon straight pick.
Right. Even if it's $5 on the Corey Sandhagen 4th and 5th round, you're going to win over $100 if you just play that. And I really do think that that's the only way that I see Sandhagen winning this. He's not going to beat him on the ground, and he's not going to beat him standing up, especially in those first 3 rounds. So realistically, Sandhagen, I think he has skinny legs for the division. Marlon's going to try and chop those down. And he's really going to have to weather that storm early and just hope that Marlon gasses, almost exactly how Cejudo did. Now, Cejudo being the best bantamweight in the world, he had problems in those first 2 rounds.
He did. Big problems, man. He almost got finished.
Yeah, he faced more adversity in those first 2 rounds than he has in his last 5 fights. Yeah. And I don't understand why Corey Sandhagen is the favorite right here. I'm trying to think of some of his best wins, and I guess it's the split decision over John Lineker.
He's not even in the UFC anymore.
Right, and John Lineker, he has the fight style where, if you can't figure it out after 2 rounds, what are you doing? Yeah. I mean, he's looking to set up a right from the hip and a left from the hip, and then the decision win over Rafael Sunsao. It's like, okay, that's a common opponent, but
Sunsao's on like a 3-fight losing streak.
Yeah, and Marlon finished a Sunsao where Corey Sandhagen, again, it's like those are his biggest wins, and they're not by finish. He fights Aljamain Sterling and gets starched in the first round. It's like, I don't understand what the odds makers are seeing from Corey Sandhagen, other than the fact that he's at team elevation and could drag it out into the later rounds. But why are you going to bank on that if fighting somebody with the caliber of Marlon Moraes?
Yes, Marlon at dog odds, how dangerous he is early, and how the weakness Corey has shown early. Mm-hmm. There's so much there for us to play Marlon, in my opinion. You touched on the commonality of opponents and stuff like that. both fought a sundown. Now Marlon did lose his split decision debut to him, but then came back and finished him. Where he was a lackluster performance on Corey Sandhagen's part. And then, their other common opponent in Aljo has very, very different outcomes. It's just, I was very shocked. I texted you the other day and said, without looking, what do you think the odds are for the Moraes and Sandhagen fight? Because it almost blew me away that we were seeing Moraes at a dog odds there with the resumes and talent that the two have.
100%. I touched on Sandhagen having that footwork-based style. I got to imagine that Moraes has the mindset to slow him down. So I look for him to establish that low calf kick early, slow down that pace that Sandhagen will try and use. And realistically, if Moraes, I think looking at it right now, I think it might be even a better play to just find the odds on Moraes inside the distance. He's sitting at a dog right now. I got to imagine this inside the distance is even better odds, and that's the only way I see him winning. I do think the tides will start to turn into the second round, mid-third, exactly like Cejudo, if Sandhagen is able to make it out of those. And then he'll start coasting to those fourth and fifth rounds. And with those odds that we're getting on Corey Sandhagen, fourth and fifth round, shoot, that's a play right there. But I'm with you. I lean towards Marlon Moraes. I think that he'll get it done early. If he does, it'll be before the middle of the third round. But after that middle of the third round, it's all Corey Sandhagen.
Yeah, man. So I think our breakdown of the fight is spot on with each other there, man. We really do think Marlon is favored early in that fight with Corey favored late. But, man, we're both going to play Marlon there at dog odds. Anything else about that fight before we dive into fight of the night and fighter to watch?
No, I think we covered it all. I just think that the split decision over John Lineker is the one that the biggest fight about Corey Sandhagen that stands out to me. The fact that he could not figure out John Lineker, I don't think he's going to be able to figure out Marlon Moraes.
Okay. So just to say, my fight of the night to watch, it is Marlon Moraes versus Corey Sandhagen. It's such a high level fight, both a number 2 and the number 4. Like I said, I think the winner gets TJ Dillashaw with the winner of that fight, then getting the winner of Peter Yan and Aljo. It's a super, super good fight there, man. We think Marlon's going to finish early. We like Corey to finish the fight late. It's going to be a super stellar fight that both guys making reads on each other is going to get interesting.
I think my fight to watch would be the Giga Chikadze and the Omar Moraes fight. I think that one's going to be under 2.5, and you can grab it at plus 190 odds right now. And I really think that that's something that people should consider hitting.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you, man. But my fighter to watch, I'm going to have to go with Edson Barboza. He's 1-5 in his last 6, 2-5 in his last 7. The 3-fight losing streak. You got your opponent pulled from you. You arguably should have won your last fight. There's just a lot surrounding Edson. I want him to get back on the track, man. He's a fighter that I'm never going to miss Edson Barboza fight, man, ever. Definitely my fighter to watch because he always brings it.
And hopefully he can find some success at 145. I know he lost the Denige fight, but realistically he could make another run at 145.
Yeah, and I put that in my notes. I felt like he dropped to 45 because he had lost to the top contenders at 55, and he did realize that his only good shot at getting that belt was at 45. It's a good fight for Edson to get back on track, man. I think his striking's really going to shine here.
My fighter to watch would be Youssef Zalal. I really hope that he can implement that game plan of just being the far superior striker. I think that he has all the tools. It's just about avoiding getting put on his back, right? And I think that he, as far as his style, man, he's exciting to watch. He's going to throw some spinning stuff, some stand-up attacks that I don't think Topuria's really seen before. So if he can land, I think that we could see a highlight reel knockout from Youssef Zalal. So definitely keep an eye on him.
Nice, man. So it's a hell of a night of fights. I think we got 13 fights total. I'm loving them stacking these cards in case some stuff falls out and stuff. Excellent night of fights from top to bottom. Good co-main event, good main event. We're going for 5 out of 6 past events profitable, over 4.5 units last week. We're going to release picks early this week so people can get maybe get the lines a little earlier, the lines that we're getting as well, because I know we we snag a lot of them earlier in the week, release them, on fight day and stuff, so the odds aren't there for everybody the same for us. So we are going to try to get that out earlier. Mm-hmm. And make sure to comment below who you guys think are going to win. And also on the Twitter account, man, we're super active during the fight. So comment and interact with us there. We love that. Anything else you want to add?
No, just, we talked about giving away that signed UFC fight poster, the Robbie Lawler versus Matt Brown. Mm-hmm. And we figured out that our subscribers, we can't actually see them. So we're going to have to do, once we reach that 100 subscribers, we'll have a couple of videos where people can just comment. And, if your comment gets picked, you'll be put into a hat more or less, and we'll pick you out and see who wins the poster.
Hope you're cashing with us, man. It's free money for everybody. See you guys next week.
Peace.